Hello.
Hi.
Looks like it's me and you, Heather.
How
How are
are
you?
you? I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Hold on, let me close this blind. The lights are coming like the
Okay.
light coming right into my eye. Okay. Yeah, I feel bad that I had to move it. I was just traveling so much and just so worn out, and I did not feel well. And it was just like, I felt so bad, but
No problem.
I will record this and I'll post it and people can watch you and I chat about it.
Sounds great.
All right, so let me share my screen. Okay. All right. Okay. Am I just want to hold on. I want to stop this. I've never quite figured out how to share the screen and still have my face and the screen up at the same time. So let me try sharing this screen and moving everything over to here. Okay. I don't know what you're seeing, but are you seeing my screen and a little pop-up block of like a face?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, now I'm gonna press present and see if it still shows that. Do you still see my face and the,
I do. Yep. It looks great.
okay, yay, it's working.
Good job.
All right, perfect. Look at me go with my Zoom.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so since it's just gonna be us, I'm just gonna keep it real like easy and just more like a chat between the two of us. Um, so can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, are you're looking to get into syndication or you're interested in learning more? Just
Yeah, I really just want to learn more about it. I work in affordable housing right now. And, I've worked in it for over 20 years. And years ago, I started off with a real estate license, and I worked for another agent that I believe this is what he did. And I didn't work for him long enough really to figure out exactly what it was he was doing. And at the time, I probably didn't really even realize that there was an opportunity there.
okay.
So I've just been trying to educate myself on different areas of things as I've been going along, and
Yeah.
thought this might, it sounded kind of interesting. And like I say, he seemed to do it a lot. So,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Awesome. Now, how many units was all of that?
um, you know, I think he bought fairly small properties. I mean, they were probably less than 100 units.
Okay.
He would generally have a number of partners. I remember driving around and getting signatures on contracts and things like that for him, but
Yeah.
not really knowing what it was I was
Yeah.
doing.
I hear you. I did the same thing for someone who was developing hotels,
Oh,
and I had no idea. And then I actually went back and looked at all like this stuff that we were doing, and I'm like, oh, this is too funny that I'm doing this like 3 years later, and I had
yeah.
no idea what it was 3 years prior. Yeah. So all right, awesome. Well, I'm just gonna. Oops, I don't know what I just hit. But so this is just me telling you what I've learned. So I'm not an attorney or financial advisor or anything like that. Um, Really what I want to do is just help people understand, what their personal goals are, why they should consider doing the syndication as an investment strategy, basic terminology, pros and cons, and give you some steps on what to do moving forward.
Okay.
So basically, syndication is just in pooling investors' money for the down payment and purchase of a property. That's kind of the simple, way to do it. And the people who are pooling the money, they're like they're called limited partners, but they're basically silent partners. And the other one is general partner, or the decision maker. And the general partner can be one person or it could be 15 people, but it's the general partnership that runs and manages, does all the active and heavy lifting of a syndication.
Okay.
Um, they can also be called the syndicate sponsor or key principal. So you'll hear those interchanged you know, all over the place. You'll hear different names being thrown out there.
Okay.
And then as far as limited partners, one thing that you want to get across to people who may be considering investing with you is that their risk is limited to the amount of in their investment in the deal. So let's say that someone puts in 100,000. The most they can lose is 100,000. Now we don't ever want to lose any money, but we can never guarantee anything. But we can guarantee that they're not going to be sued. Their names aren't on the loan. They're not responsible for any performance or management of the property whatsoever.
Okay.
So it makes it nice for them.
Yeah.
So the pros of being on the syndication side is you're in control of the property management. You have access to financial resources. You are doing risk reduction, through investing in real estate and pooling everybody together. You can get in larger assets than you would be able to on your own. And having more assets, it creates a scalability. So it gives a stability because you have many more units, in one location.
Gotcha.
You're going to have less money out of pocket. And then you're going to get tax benefits, forced depreciation, write-offs. And these pros, other than like the control of property management, are almost the same exact pros as what an investor would receive. So like if you decided you wanted to jump into this, like come back and look at this and steal all of these pros and show it to potential investors or when you're talking to them about it. Like these are kind of the bullet points you want to drop in conversation.
Okay.
So the cons of it for some investors, because there are going to be people like me and you who want to be active, but then there's going to be other people who don't want to be active. So these are actually cons for someone who wants to be active, because it can be expensive. So to do a syndication, you're going to have your fees are going to be a lot bigger. So my usual attorney fees, are anywhere from a couple hundred to maybe a couple thousand. This one that I just did was 20,000 just for my one attorney. So,
Okay.
but you build that into the price of the closing and the capital raise that you're going to do. There's a huge learning curve, which I'm glad you're, joining me this evening. This will help you immensely, with kind of taking that step forward to what you want to do. The due diligence is very overwhelming, but if you have a good team, so on your team, you're going to have a broker, you'll have your banker, you'll have your couple of attorneys, maybe you'll have a general partner who's been a sponsor in a deal before and has been through this, that they can help you walk through it. I would probably say like 30% of the time I had no idea what was happening. And I was just waiting for people to like tell me, hey, sign this, do that, do it there. Do this. And I'm like, okay, sign my life away. Just let's keep the process moving. So it was a little overwhelming, but your team will definitely take care of it and make sure that you're checking all the boxes. You may need experience. So when you're working with agency debt, going with Freddie or Fannie, part of the requirements is that you show experience. And each individual general partner does not need to have the same experience or net worth. It's all as a whole. So let's say you and I and somebody else were working on the team, maybe I've worked with Fannie and Freddie and I have the experience. Maybe you're bringing the investors and somebody else found the deal. All of us working together can get it all put together.
Okay.
And meet all of the blocks that each entity is going to need us to meet in order to close the deal. Property analysis. Once you do a handful of them using different calculators, it gets easier. But most of the time you don't know the questions to ask until you learn the questions to ask, which will be when you're in the throes of things, you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, this. But if you have a good calculator, a lot of those inputs are already there. You just have to put the number in. So it's just going out and finding where those numbers are. Okay, what were the last 4 quarters of, garbage pickup because they have 4 dumpsters, or what was the last year's insurance bill. So, a lot of these things you'll have to, go out and get information and research them. So the big, term we kind of talked about earlier is the sponsor. Is the main one is going to be the deal sponsor. Now, the person that I did this with, he was my sponsor in a certain portion of the deal, and then I was a sponsor in a certain portion of the deal. But because he has done them before I have, and this was my first one, he kind of gets title of the deal sponsor. And his responsibilities included, really like I found the deal, but he helped me source the debt for it. I did the capital raise, but he got me in with the broker and Freddie Mac for the loan. I put together the operational plans. I'm handling the operating and the day-to-day asset and the investor relations and everything. But what his is, it's kind of like when you have someone new doing something under you, you are ultimately responsible for everything that happens, even if that person does everything under you. But next time, now I could be the sponsor. So maybe you and I work together, and maybe you do 75% of this, these responsibilities, but I'm going to make sure that these were all done correctly. I'm going to lead you in the right direction. I'm going to be there for you to ask any questions. So they're kind of like on this retainer to make sure that it keeps going smoothly moving forward.
Okay.
Do you have any questions so far?
I don't think so.
Okay,
No.
all right. Now the investor is, like I said earlier, their responsibility is putting capital into the deal. So, and I don't want to say that's literally their only responsibility, because they also have to cash their check if they get checks, or they have to check their bank account to make sure their money is there. That's basically all they need to do, and then get their tax documents to their CPA so that they can get the tax benefits, from this.
Okay.
So now these people are also going to want to see what the deal is about. I'm going to show you the presentation that I gave everybody, so that you can see what I actually gave to investors and see what it's like being on that end. But I can talk a little bit more in depth, what went into each facet of that presentation.
Okay.
And there's two types of syndications. Have you heard of them? The 506B and 506C?
I have not.
Okay. So basically, one is for friends and family, the people you already know, and the other one you can blast all over Facebook. So the 506B is you're allowed to raise money from an unlimited amount of accredited investors, and that's people, they meet certain standards, whether they're single or married, but generally it's $1 million net worth, excluding their primary residence. They have an income of 200,000 or 300,000 if they're combined, and then so those are kind of like the two standards for accredited investor. And then non-accredited is anybody who doesn't meet those, but they have to be a sophisticated investor, which means that they can show that they have made financial decisions for themselves, and their own portfolio at some point in time in their life.
Okay.
So you can't just go out and advertise this. This has to be kind of like, you and I know each other. Hey, I'm doing this, come on board. Where on the other hand, 506, the 506C is for accredited investors only. So they have to meet those strict requirements. Oh, here we go. I knew I had it written down. So yeah, annual income exceeding 200,000 or 300 for joint in the last 2 years, or they have a personal net worth of over $1 million minus their single family home or their personal residence.
Okay.
But this you can put on Facebook. You can, put magazine ads. You can put flyers on cars. It's going to be whatever you want to do. You could do that with this.
Okay.
Sometimes people want to do the 506B because it seems like there's a little less paperwork. But I kind of wish I would have done a 506C on mine, because what happens a lot of times is 506C, they usually do $100,000 minimum. And once you're an accredited investor, $100,000 isn't really that much to part with. But when you're working with like kind of newer investors who are being passive investors, them parting with $50,000 or $25,000, you'll see that it's a little bit more, they have a little bit more hesitation. So there's a little bit more finesse that goes with that in teaching them. Whereas people who are already accredited, they're like, yeah, I've done this before, I know this, let's go, just send me my money. It makes it a little easier. So it's kind of a horse apiece.
So on the 506B, you do not have to be accredited, but 506C you do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And 506B, you can invest less than $100,000, but 506C is 100,000 or more.
Generally, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And then like how syndication is structured is the equity and what portion of equity people are getting. So the one that I just did, we did a 70-30 split, which means the investors get 70% of the returns, and then the general partnership gets 30%. Sometimes people will do 90% to the investors and 10% to the general partnership, but that's pretty slim when it comes to when you see all the work that goes into it. And there are deals out there that have been 60-40 and 50-50, but I'll tell you the reason that they're generally the 70-30 range is because you need to kind of sweeten the pot. A deal would have to be ridiculously sweet to get it into the 50-50 range, because if you can't make the numbers work and give, say an 8% return annually at minimum, trying to do a 50-50 return just isn't going to work. So it really depends on the due diligence, what the numbers look like. So I run the splits all different. And what I'm looking at is I want to make sure I'm giving my investors a return that's better than the stock market overall, over like a 10-year period, rather than trying to keep 50% for myself. But if I could keep 50% for myself and still give them those returns, I totally would do it.
Okay.
So, and nobody should be ashamed of doing it, because people shouldn't care about the split. They should care about the returns.
Gotcha.
That's kind of where the main point is. And then there's this other thing called a preferred return. And essentially what that means is before you get any of your split in your returns, you make sure you pay your investors first. And only after they receive their returns do you get your return.
Okay.
Okay. And some people like to see that. Now, I did preferred returns for a certain tier in my in this deal that I just did. But for people who put like 25 or 50, they're not getting a preferred return. They're just getting their semi-annual distribution. Whereas people in tier one over 100,000, they're getting 8% every month with the makeup distribution. So say they get 8% every month, but it's actually 10.7% over the year. They'll get that 2.7% at the end of the year as the catch up.
Okay. Gotcha.
So some people just gives them, monthly income. Other people, so people get to choose what they want to do.
Okay.
Any questions so far?
No, not so far.
Okay. So how syndicators are paid, property management fees. So for this deal, what we did is we didn't outsource the property management to a third party manager. But just because we did that doesn't mean that we shouldn't not take the property management fees, because we are doing the property management portion of it. So we have a property management company, that's run by me as well. So we still do all the tenant screening, we coordinate all the maintenance, we do all the bookkeeping. But this is separate from asset management. Asset management is more me managing the property manager and investor relations. Sometimes people get those two things confused. They're like, wait a minute, isn't a property an asset? And why is this? But one is like the lower level boots on the ground. One is the management of the investors and making sure the boots on the ground is doing the business plan and putting the business plan into place. So
Okay,
it's two different jobs, even though it's just one group doing it.
gotcha.
And then there's the ownership interest. So when I was talking about that 70-30, that 30%, that's your interest in it. So you have an ownership interest. And not all syndicators put money into the syndication. I've heard two schools of thought. Some are like, oh no, you must put money into your own syndication. Otherwise, people are going to wonder why you're not, and they're going to feel less secure about it. And then the other school of thought was, no, syndicators shouldn't put money in because they're putting money in before the deal is ever even complete. They're putting money, they're paying the attorneys, they're paying all of the environmental fees, they're paying broker fees. So there's all these things that they're not going to get paid back unless the deal goes through. And let's say a syndicator is working on 3 syndications. Well, that's a lot of money to be putting out and then still having to put money in on the limited partner side too. So
Okay,
some people are like, you play in your own deal, and some people are like, you pay for all the stuff that won't get paid back, and you keep that money in reserve so that the next time another deal comes around, say a deal came around while I was doing this, there's no way I could have put in as a limited partner, financed everything all at once, and financed a new deal all at the same time.
right.
So that's how I kind of explain it to people. You know, with the ownership interest and should owners, the general partners put in or not.
So when you're talking to people and trying to get them to invest, do they ask you like how much you're putting in the deal and how much everybody else is putting in?
Yeah, sometimes they'll ask, what I'm putting in, and I tell them this is how I put money in the deal. Like I'm not putting any in the partnership side, but I put, X amount down with the attorney on retainer. I had, I pay for the system that allows me to manage all the investors so that everybody can come online, and reduce like the paper that they're going to receive. I pay for all of the marketing expenses, all the website. So that's like the website, the opportunity slide deck that gets done. And just everything that goes in with that, the application fee with the bank. And the application fee with, when you're going directly at agency debt is not small. It's $10,000 just to apply. So if I don't go through on a deal, like I'm out $10,000. So really, I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
Yeah, you got all the
right
risk.
from the beginning.
Right.
So,
Makes sense.
so that's kind of how I explain it.
Okay.
And then there's this item called the acquisition fee, and that's the compensation for all that stuff that I do in the beginning before the deal is ever done. So me doing due diligence, structuring the deal, talking to investors, finding the property, coming up with the business plan. It's everything that I've done for 6 months before the deal ever closed. So this one that I did took me 8 months to do. So I was working on the deal for 8 months with no pay and putting money out of pocket. So on the back end, I get paid for what I did the previous 8 months of my life, making a great deal, negotiating, and getting my investors into something that's going to pay them for the next, 7 to 10 years with very little risk.
So do you get paid at the closing or
Yeah.
do you take a draw after the closing? Or?
You get paid after the closing. Now, some syndications don't get fully, um, some syndications don't get fully funded before closing. Um, so at closing, you just need the closing costs. But sometimes in the syndication, you'll see, you do raise, which includes the acquisition fee. Part of your raise includes any uh, renovation costs. So for this one, I have $100,000 set aside for renovation costs, but I didn't need that for closing. So I could still talk to people if I needed that after the close to raise that extra 100 or 150,000, whatever it is. I don't have to have it. As long as I have the amount to close, I can raise after the fact.
Okay.
So let's say that I didn't get that 100,000. I'm not going to take my acquisition fee until I'm fully funded and then take it.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, but you could really take it whenever. Now, what I did do is I did pay my sponsor his. My goal is I will take my money last. I want to make sure everybody who helped make this happen and allowed me to work with them and put their trust and confidence in me to get paid first.
Gotcha.
Because I know the deal is great. I'm fine. That money's going to come. Isn't a big deal. So,
Okay.
These are kind of like the next steps. Just gives you education. Talking to me. We're going to make friends with each other. Or if you go out to, once things start opening after COVID, I find that in-person conferences are much more valuable to me than just like Zoom meetings, because there's something about like at a conference when it's done for the day, you don't go home, you go out and have dinner with the 3 people that you're sitting next to, and you learn about them, and that's how you build those friendships.
Right.
So I highly recommend, if you're looking to get into this, going to, once things open up, going to something live and in person.
So are they like syndication conferences or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as I hear something, I usually post it in like the different Facebook groups. Hey, so and so's having this conference, or people will be like, or people will reach out to me and be like, hey, I saw this conference is coming up. Do you know anything about Michael Blanc, or Rod Khleif? And I can tell you what I know about them.
Okay.
Just had someone moving. Hello. They're connecting the audio. But yeah, if you ever see something like syndication conference or learn about syndication or Google that, you can always shoot me a message on Facebook and be like, hey, I heard about this. What do you think? Because I've been to so many of them. Hi, Larry. I don't know. Their voice here. I'm going to ask them to unmute so we can say hi. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I was trying to mute myself.
Oh, I asked you to unmute so we could say hello.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you're able to make it. I'm sorry that the first 30 minutes you missed, but I'm recording this and I'm going to post it. So you'll have to go back. I'll get you the link after I have it posted. But I'm going to jump into the opportunity overview that I did for my investors on this last one. So this is really where the meat of it is. What we just went over is kind of like basic terms, just terminology. So if you have any questions as we're going along, feel free to answer. So I'm going to pull this over and maximize this, and we will get going on this. So this is what I showed potential investors in my deal. I printed this out. I had it bound, and I actually mailed it to them. I didn't let people see it before I talked to them a couple times. And the reason I do that is because I wanted to build up some anticipation. And a lot of times people are so used to getting things emailed to them that it doesn't feel as tangible. But getting something in the mail and they know they're going to get it in the mail builds like this little bit of excitement. and no one ever gets mail anymore. So how cool is it to have something tangible in your hand? So I think that's a big thing that I like to do. I don't know what other syndicators are doing or if that works for them. But that's how I roll. And then I put the disclaimer on there, just about the offerings and securities. Now I upfront put the investment highlights. The reason I do that is because I like to do the bottom line up front. You'll see a lot of people, they'll be like, oh, here's the property and here's the team and here's this. Forget that. People want to know bottom line up front. If they want to know the rest of it, they're really not paying attention until they see these numbers. So I put these numbers first. I'm going to tell you what your projected returns are, what the estimated hold time is, what the horizon could be depending on the market, and what the overall return is going to be. They're the basic things I feel that people want to know. I want to know, so I put it up front.
Okay.
Then I like to put how the ways the investment pays you. And, so one is your cash flow that you're receiving. The other is your return of capital. So at the end of the deal, whether it's a refinance or a sale, they're going to get the money that they put in, plus the cash flow, plus any appreciation of the property. So they'll get their pro rata share. So let's say, they put $100,000 in and their pro rata share is 3.5% of the overall deal. We're going to take whatever the total profit was. And if your part was 3.5%, we're going to take that profit or that appreciation, and you'll get 3.5% of that. And in this case, it'd be about 97,000. So they got close to 75,000 in cash flow. And then at the end, they're going to get 100,000 and they'll get their $100,000 back.
Nice.
And then I break down what that actually means. So, okay, so in this deal, 100,000 was 11.21%. And then it just shows what the cash flow of the first year is. And then we do a running tally of the average returns and then what the cash on cash is. Basically, what cash on cash is that's how hard your money's working for you. That's the return that you're getting every year. So if they get 100,000 and the return was 11%, they're getting 11,000. I mean, it's pretty basic. But then when you average it over time, so you take all of these numbers and average them, you get about 10%. So you kind of want to be around that 10% overall. I generally don't want to be below 8%, but I always want to reach for higher. And then it shows the net proceeds from the sale, adds all of that up, return of member capital. So it shows the total investment, total return on investment, and then total IRR is just your overall return over the long period of time. So cash on cash is for the year. Total investment return is over the total time frame.
Okay.
Any questions so far?
I don't think so.
All right. Now this gets into, because some people want to see this, the budgeted profit and loss statement, what it's going to look for. You'll see a lot of people use the word projected. I like to use the word budgeted. And this may be, an effort in semantics, but I like the word budgeted because I feel that you're looking into the past, what it did, and you're using those numbers and you're adding a percentage and adjusting for, each year like inflation. Projected, that more feels like I'm kind of looking into a crystal ball and I'm projecting it's going to be this rather than budgeted. So I use the term budgeted, not projected. And it just goes into everything, vacancies, income, and then all the operating expenses, just gives everybody. The biggest thing that you want to look at is this expense of gross income, the percentage. you generally want expenses to be between the 45 and 55%. If you see a deal and you're running numbers that an owner gave you, and that number is only showing 35% operating expenses, that means that that owner has not been accounting for something. And generally you're going to see it's going to be an owner who has been doing their own repairs and maintenance and didn't charge themselves for that. So when you're doing your underwriting, you're going to put in a certain allocation that's going to actually show what a true repairs and maintenance would be, as if this was being managed by a professional management and asset management company.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this is the breakdown of the out-of-pocket costs. So it gives you your acquisition cost, your debt, and the equity investment. So all these numbers, like the renovations, acquisition fee, financing fee, attorneys, appraisal, all of this stuff is all stuff that needs to go into the equity raise. Because the equity raise not only raises the down payment for the property, it also raises the money for all of these costs as well. And these are all formulated in your due diligence. So even with all of these put in, you are still providing your investors that 10.6% return over that time. And what's great about agency debt, how we did it with this deal, is it's a 30-year fixed loan for, and it's a 10-year balloon. So it's the amortization is over 30 years rather than 15, which makes this kind of deal really sweet. And we got it like a 2.89% interest rate. So if you were out looking for a commercial line, doing working with a commercial bank, not an agency, they're probably giving you 15 years at 6%.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get in these types of agency debt, like this type of debt, it's almost like it reverts back to buying a single family home, getting 30 years at, they're giving money away essentially. So that's what made this really nice. So we took a little over $1 million on debt in this, and the total acquisition was about 1.7, and the raise was 675,000. So that includes the down payment and all these out-of-pocket costs.
Okay.
Now, the business plan, it may be different for each property that you're looking at, but what we were doing it for this is renovation and rent growth. The property needs some love. I mean, the previous landlord did a pretty good job, but there's always room for improvement, which I could see. Expense reduction, like 16 of these units all had separate meters, but the owner was paying for the water, sewer, garbage. So as we're doing lease turnovers, we're putting all the water, sewer, garbage onto the residents to reduce those expenses. And we're doing management upgrades. So essentially the previous owner was doing everything pen and paper, didn't run any formal applications, like there was no electronic use of anything. So we actually brought in all the electronics. So right now, I would say probably 40% of the tenants after a month and a half are paying online. We're doing electronic leasing. There's an app for the tenants to be able to use. The tenants can now put in work orders, so work orders aren't lost, in the mix of things. So it really helps keep everything managed. I see you have an operation manager there helping you.
My furry friend.
And then we're doing community amenity upgrades. So right now, Erie's a non-pet friendly market, but all of my rentals are pet friendly. Before I took on this rental or this property, just the other rentals that I was doing, we were making an extra $8,000 a year just in pet fees, monthly pet fees.
Wow.
So now adding another 32 units, if I could get 2 pets into each one of those units, I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is we're looking to refinance this property and continue holding the property, but depending on what the market dictates, you know, in 5 or 6 years, we may sell it. Who knows what it'll look like? Who knows? I mean, we all know right now that there's no inventory. How long is it going to take to recover? Is there going to be any inventory, or how easy is it going to be able to get a 32 unit? So we're just going to kind of hold our breath, do all of the rest of the business plan, and when it comes to that time in 5 to 6 years, we will decide what we're going to do. And then the last thing that we did is we did cost segregation. Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm reading what this is here. This part does not sound familiar.
Okay. So basically the IRS has a schedule of useful life for property.
Okay.
And let's say a refrigerator. A refrigerator may have a useful life of 5 years. So what we did is, instead of buying the property for, you know, $1.4 million, we bought the property and all of its assets, and we did a segregation. So the property may have only been worth, say, 900,000, like the actual fixed structure, but all of the appliances, all of the, you know, electric panels, all of the concrete, all of the carpets, all of the lighting, everything. We broke everything down based on its useful life so that it depreciates faster than what it would, which means we have more write-offs because we have a larger depreciation than we would if it was all 29 years.
Okay.
Okay. So a fridge depreciates in 5 years, where a building may only depreciate in 29.5 years. So the more we can get depreciated faster, that shows more losses. It gives us more tax benefits.
Okay.
Okay. So it shows paper losses, but they're still getting their income. And that's why people like this, because you see paper losses, but you realize actual cash flow income.
Okay.
So it took me a while to understand that. And if you don't fully understand it, I may not be explaining it as, you know, eloquently, but it's definitely something that you want to do if you're going to do this.
Okay.
The other reason I like cost segregation is because when the tax authority comes to me and says, oh, well, you bought this, you did this deal for, you know, $1.4 million, you owe $1.4 million in taxes. I'm like, oh, no, I only owe 900 because property taxes is based off real estate, not off of refrigerators, carpets, lighting, concrete.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
it helps there too. And then I just put a little bit of information, so maybe people aren't from my area. So I show, you know, kind of where it is, what a little bit about us is, give them the property details, because I hope that with someone already knowing me and seeing what the returns are, they're already in. Now this is just, oh, well, let me see what I'm buying. Okay, like I know I want to buy it, but let me see what it is. So 6 units, 32, 6 buildings, 32 units, 8 were small 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath townhomes, 8 were large 2-bed, 1.5 townhomes, and then there's 16 apartments. So in this picture, you're seeing what the townhomes look like, and that is what the apartments look like. You know, and then I just gave amenities and a little bit of, you know, what people, because people want to know, like, all right, am I buying a crappy complex? Am I buying a good complex? Am I buying one that has the ability to add to it and increase my income? Okay, this is what it's telling you. And then here's a big one, the rent comps. This is huge. So if you look at this first set of numbers, those are the comps, and I know all these comps because very intimately, because my sponsor owns this one, this one, this one, and then I own this one, and this is one that neither he or I own. So I averaged it all out, you know, the number of units, the distance, figured out what the rent per square foot was, do they allow pets? And then I did the current property rents. So if you look at this, all the rents for everything was under $600. And that included water and sewer and no pets. So it's like, what is happening here? But after I did the market research, the townhome, the larger townhome should at least be 700 minimum. And that's with the tenants paying water, sewer, garbage. So it's under market by $100 to begin with, without me doing anything to the property. So right off the bat, I could literally just clean these up, fix whatever needs to be fixed, and rent these for anywhere from $60 to $100 more per month without doing anything. But I'm obviously going to do upgrades and make these rents even higher.
So did you do that rent comp study, or did you have an appraisal?
I did the study.
Okay. If you
Yeah, and the reason I did the study is because all of the ones that I needed were all owned by my sponsor.
there,
He
okay.
sponsored me on the deal, so I'm like, hey, Jason, can you give me all of your data?
Okay.
Yeah, and then I own a townhome complex down the road, about miles.
But for your financing though, they would require an appraisal, right?
Yes, but they don't require an appraisal on the rents, because what they're going to appraise it on is based off the operating numbers of the past 2 years.
Okay.
So when they do it, they're actually looking backwards.
Okay.
When I do it, I'm looking at current. What are other properties, like what would be considered my competition would be, and then, okay, if my competition's this and they're of similar types, all right, well then here's what they could be.
Okay.
And then being in this market for 14 years, I'm pretty knowledgeable about what these numbers are and what they could be.
Gotcha.
Okay. So this gives you an idea about rental demographics. So, you know, about 42% of people are going to be between the 500 and 750 range. And that's the market that we're going to, that we're marketing to, the demographic. And that has the lion's share of people in it, in this area.
Okay.
This just shows you kind of where we are, because people are like, oh, I've heard of Lake Erie, but where's Erie? Literally, we're equidistant between, you know, 3 major cities, just to give them an idea. You know, some quick facts about your area. Notable news, any news that you have in your area. What area are you located in, Heather?
I'm in Louisville, Kentucky.
Louisville, Kentucky. Nice. Yeah, so you might want to put, you know, stuff that's going on in Louisville, but say you're not in Louisville, you're going to want to tell people why you're in whatever area it's in. You know, so you want to make sure that you know all this. And a lot of this can be found from, you know, you can Google the area, or you can go to the Chamber of Commerce. They'll have like a whole big pamphlet. You can shamelessly take all of that, because you're promoting Erie. You're bringing more income, you're increasing the housing, you know, making a better housing stock for people. So shamelessly steal what they did. Don't reinvent the wheel, you know, put out there what's already out there and what you know of those areas.
Okay.
Now, this is how I did my investments. So I did tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So if somebody did a minimum of 150,000, like I was saying earlier, they'll get the 8% monthly distribution with a semi-annual catch-up. And then they stay in the deal. So if it refinance, they stay in the deal until there's a sale. So even after refinance, they're in the deal forever. So if I held the property for another 15 years, I'm married to those investors for 15 more years. Now, tier 2 investors, maybe they only want to do 100,000. They'll stay in the deal for 3 years after a refinance, and they only get semi-annual distributions. And anyone who wanted to do the minimum, like the base minimum amount, they get semi-annual distributions, but after a refinance, their shares are redeemed. So they're not receiving any more payments after a refinance.
Okay.
Okay. And you can make this look like whatever you want. It's like, I thought, like, I was like, oh, I have to do it this way or that way. No, you can make this however you want it to be. If you only want 2 classes, you can do 2 classes. If you only want 1 and you want to make a minimum investment of $100,000, so everybody's $100,000, everybody gets a semi-annual distribution, or let's make it a quarterly distribution. And everybody stays in until sale. Boom, done. Make your accounting life easier. But if somebody wants to only do 50, I wanted to give people the option to kind of like dip their toe in the water and get into a deal, because a lot of people who join in the deals are investors who want to be able to put a feather in their cap and be like, hey, I invested as a limited partner to learn. Now my next step is I want to be the general partner. So you kind of learn how it is to be on the investor side. You get a little taste of it, and you're putting your faith into the process, and you're building goodwill, with the sponsor and the general partners who are on that deal, because maybe you'll bring them a deal and they're like, oh yeah, this is one of our investors. They already invested with us, so they know, like, and trust us. And they're bringing us a deal. So now we kind of like know and like them. Maybe you'll be invited to be on the general partnership team for that deal. So it's kind of like this, and that's what I did. I invested in 2 syndications before I ever did my own syndication as a general partner.
Okay.
So that gives you a little idea too. So like I was telling you earlier, like, I didn't take the title of deal sponsor. My deal sponsor did, and I'm completely fine with it. Jason, he's wonderful. If you Google Jason Perro, he's probably on 50 different podcasts, and he's guest speaker at tons of different things. He's a great guy. Love having him as a partner. His wife is awesome. She's in the business too. Love working with her. They're both epic. But you want to put this information down so that, say someone's talking to somebody about the deal and you're new. So say it's you and I. Say I'm your sponsor, and you're one of the general partners. You want to put on here, so when you're talking to people, be like, hey, my deal sponsor, she's done this, 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 and this. If we could set up a meeting with her. It kind of gives your deal a little bit more clout than if you were trying to do, say a $300 or a $3 million deal on your own. If someone sees that someone else has already done these types of deals and is working with you as a partner, that kind of bolsters your reputation too, as birds of a feather. Okay. And then I called myself the operating partner, because that's basically what I'm doing. I am operating it all. So, I have a little bit about myself in there, and I'll have to update it now that I've closed this deal. And then I put frequently asked questions in the back. This is helpful for not only the investors, but helpful for you too, because sometimes, like, you take for granted the information that you have in your brain, and they're going to ask you, how are your return projections calculated? And you're going to be like, hold on, I'm just going to give you these, facts and questions, or frequently asked questions, and here's everything broken down so you can read and study it. And then when you're done educating yourself, we can chat some more. Because I have a whole process on how I talk to investors. It's like a 6 to 10 touch process, to build confidence, to build anticipation, to build all that good feelings that you want. Because the way I look at it is, when you are talking to investors, you're basically dating, right? So you don't want to, when you go and talk to an investor for the first time, you're not going to spill your whole life story when you're trying to date someone on the first date. You're going to want to, you're going to want to flirt a little bit. You're going to want to keep some things back here a little bit. And then the next time you meet, you release a little bit of more information, and then a little bit of more. Oh, and they're going to drop this bomb that you didn't drop earlier. And they're going to, whoo, we love you. So the other thing is, once someone agrees to be in your deal and to partner with you, you're essentially marrying them. And I'm going to stop my screen share because I'm just going to give you some tips, because this kind of works for no matter what you're doing, whether it's a syndication or whether you're trying to find private money. This will help you no matter what. One, I like doing paper. I don't like to give paper up front. That's maybe like after we talk the fourth time. Because the first time I'm talking to you, I'm just talking to you for 10 minutes. Hey, I got this deal that I'm doing. You know, I'm going to be looking for investors, but I wanted to reach out to you first and let you know what was going on. If you have any interest, let me know. Like, here's going to be about the time frame and what I'm looking at. All right, cool. Because you want to make sure you're on the same page. You want to make sure they want to be an investor, a passive investor. You want to make sure that they want mailbox money. You know, and I'm like, all right, well, what I want to do next is I kind of want to go over some details with you. So why don't we set up a meeting for next week, and we'll do about 30 minutes. You know, and I'll ask them, you know, what time looks good for them based off my schedule, and I'll set them up. And then I'll do a Zoom, and then I'll show them a little bit of the information. You know, here's what we're looking at. Here's what I found. Really, I should do a whole class on this because it took me a couple months to learn this process. You know, it works. But what you want to do is you want to feel out anybody who's going to be a pain in the ass, a pity, you know, pain in the ass, because they're going to suck the lifeblood out of you. So if someone only wants to give you 25,000, but they're taking up 80% of your time, you're not marrying them, because they're going to be the same way they are as dating, and they're only going to get worse while you're married. I mean, it's the parallels to the dating world are so similar. And I don't know, you know, how often you've both been in the dating world or how long it's been since, but I've been in it. I'm an expert at it now, and I got it. So you don't want anybody who's going to be a pain in the butt moving forward. So you're trying to screen out those people. Let me think of what else. What questions do you have so far? Like, ask me some questions.
So I'm curious with the financing that you get. You mentioned, I think, Fannie and Freddie. Do you ever do FHA when you have it, or?
Okay, so FHA is a program rather than an agency or a bank.
Okay.
So FHA is a program, you know, for first-time home buyers. They use that. So let's say neither of you purchased a property yet, and you're like, I really want to get in with as little money down. Like, I would say, go use an FHA loan, buy a multi-unit up to 4 units. That's what they would allow. Move into it for a year, and then move out and buy your next property. Like, that's what I do. Like, a lot of people I talk, they regret using the FHA on a single family home, but they didn't know any better because they didn't know they wanted to be an investment, but they had already used it. So they can't use that. And I didn't use the FHA loan ever. So I got it. I bought my first property in 2007 when they had all these crazy types of mortgages you could do. So I still had a no money down mortgage, and I didn't have to go through any loopholes of like updates, and you know, because FHA, they're going to go through, do their appraisal, and they're going to ding certain aspects of a property that the owner is going to have to fix up before they'll do a loan for you. So I'm curious why you asked about the FHA.
Well, so FHA does have a multifamily arm, and I know that because I do FHA underwriting. So that's why I was wondering, but I've never done anything. I've never underwritten the Fannie or the Freddie side, but I've underwritten the 223Fs that FHA does. And so I know you can do those out to 35 years. So that's why I was kind of wondering, you know, if you had any experience with that, what your thoughts were comparing the two, because I don't know anything about the Fannie Freddie side. I just know about the FHA side.
Well, so Freddie and Fannie are the ones who actually are the ones who are buying they're the ones who are, those are the ones who give out the loans and then sell them to investors. So like Fannie and Freddie everything kind of comes from there. So even your FHA loans are still Fannie and Freddie. It's just in what aspect you're working with them. Are you a new home buyer? Are you an investor working with them? Are you a syndicator working on, their small balance loans? Are you working on their jumbo loans? And when I say small balance and jumbo, I'm talking 1 to 5 million and then 10 million plus.
Okay.
So there's many, many levels between all of, from first time home buyer FHA all the way up to agency debt and everything in between. So it really depends on what you're looking at. And did you call it 203S?
223F.
Oh, 223F?
Yeah. So there's that you could use to refi,
Okay.
or to buy a new deal that didn't need a whole lot of rehab, but you could do rehab with that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually have no idea. So now I'm curious. I'm just gonna Google this really quick. FHA.
It's done through HUD. It takes a very long time to close. So that's part of what I was wondering about. You say that they all do, or is that what you just said?
What's that?
Did you say that they all take a long time to close?
It seems like everything's taking a long time to close lately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Same? Everybody have the same issue?
Well, I'm pretty new to all of this, so I'm learning basically, but I had no clue that FHA can actually loan you money to do a commercial project. I thought it was to help first-time home buyers. It's the first time I'm hearing this.
Yeah, this is the first time I heard of a 223F. So I'm actually like, ooh, what is this? Is this something? But I know there's going to be something in there that tells you who. All right, it needs to contain 5 residential units with complete kitchens and baths and have been completed or substantially rehabilitated for at least 3 years prior to the date of the application of mortgage. The program allows for non-critical repairs complete within 12 months of loan closing. Yeah, but I want to know what the terms are.
So you can do out to 35 years.
How do you get that?
How do you get 35 years? It's based off of the remaining useful life of the property. So they take.
That's so subjective though. Because every time you buy and sell a property, the useful life kind of restart, on the cost segregation side, it restarts.
Right.
So I just bought this property, its useful life is 29.5 years. Let's say in 10 years, all right, so that's 10 years, so now we're at 19.5, but I sell it to you, Heather. When you start, its useful life is now 29.5 years.
Right.
Again. So I'm going to do research into this because I'm very, very curious, and it's kind of out of the scope of what we're talking about. But I'm going to do some research, and I'd like to follow up and discuss this. I want to know why I haven't heard about this.
Heard of that.
So
the strategy would be to raise the money from a bank or something, and then once you've done that 3 years or is it 5 years, then you refinance with the FHA. Would that be the? Yeah.
It looks like you can buy straight from this.
I think there was something like there's a period you have to. It must have been refurbished 35 years before.
I have some properties I'm looking at refinancing, and I'm wondering if this might be it. But once I research it, I'll be able to tell you the pros and cons of this. But this is a good. I'm glad you brought this up. So it is something. It might be something that you can do. But I guess we need to do. Oh man, debt service coverage ratio is super low. Yeah, let's talk about this again because this is very interesting. I'm very excited about it. So I've only done the FHA on the single family home side.
Gotcha.
Or like a 203K, which is under 4 units renovation or single family renovation. I haven't done 5+ with anything like this, so I'll look into it.
Okay.
And then as far as the question about, what is the role of the sponsor? Basically, what I was telling Heather earlier is a sponsor is generally the person who finds the deal, executes the deal, comes up with a business plan, operates the property, makes sure property management's doing what they're supposed to be doing, does investor relations, does all the bookkeeping, tax accounting, whether they do it themselves or outsource it. But in my deal that I did, I probably did 75% of that, but my deal sponsor retains the name deal sponsor, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been able to do this deal.
Yeah.
Based on the requirements of agency debt. So even though I did like a lot of the legwork and I had to hardly ask him any questions or help, he's going to be there. I'm basically married to him and his wife for the next 7 to 10 years. And anytime there's a problem, I can go to them and be like, hey, here's what I'm running into. What should I do?
Yeah.
But Jason and I, my sponsor, we've already known each other for 12 years. And we've worked together on different things here and there. And this is actually our first like marriage deal that the three of us worked together on. Then I was telling Heather, I'm like, well, who knows, maybe Heather finds something and she brings it to me, but she needs something. So maybe she's like, hey, Dorothy, do you want to do this deal with me? Then I would sponsor her to get her where she needs to be, and so on and so forth. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. What other questions do you have?
I think I need some time to absorb all of this.
I know. It's a lot, and I feel like I didn't even tell you half of it yet.
I'm sure. I'm sorry, one of my kiddos coming
tomorrow, I'm doing another webinar, but I'm doing a webinar for people who want to be investors.
Oh, okay.
So if you wanted to jump on that, I think maybe I invited both of you. I'd have to look.
I'm signed up for that one too, but
I think I got the invitation for that.
Both of you got that?
I think that's hang on a minute. I saw that one though.
But yeah, if you want to see how I talk to investors,
yes, I do.
That gives you an idea. So that's why I told people, I'm like, really, you should come to both of these, because even though one is for general partners, people who are going to be active, and one's for the investors, really everybody knowing both sides makes it a lot more comfortable to move forward in a deal, because then you know what everybody's doing, what everybody's expecting to do, and what should be expected of them in their own roles.
Gotcha.
So tomorrow
that's the money through the mailbox syndication, right?
What's that?
Is that the money through the mailbox syndication? That's the one for tomorrow. Yeah. I can't believe there's just 2 of us in here. I thought we would have a larger class than this, but this is great. I'm sorry I came in late.
Oh, it's okay.
That's great information.
Yeah, no, I'll put this up on YouTube, and the link will be there, so you can watch the first, or you can rewatch this, if you want to see my face again and listen to my voice. But if you want to get this information, or you're like, oh, what did she say about, what does a deal sponsor do? Then you can go on and look on there.
So is your YouTube channel, is it just under your name, or is it under something else?
I think it's Dorothy Does Deals or Dorothy Butala.
Okay, because I saw this on, it was one of the Facebook groups that I'm part of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Dorothy Deals.
And I have a bunch of stuff I need to post. I've just been traveling the past month. So there'll be more things to watch. Me personally, I like to do in-person classes, but I know with COVID, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
but I definitely recommend, whether you want to be an investor as the syndicator, or you want to be the investor as you just want mailbox money, highly recommend going to some in-person conferences when they're available.
Okay.
Definitely. And you'll probably see me at them, because I miss them so much that I'll probably, as soon as everything opens, I'm just going to be at every conference that I can. I need to get my real estate, fixed. So, but yeah, any other questions for me?
I don't think so. I think, like I said, I just want to watch some more of this, I think, and I'm going to
Yep.
check out your YouTube channel and
Okay.
I just did.
yeah, just digest
Say
it. But
that's
great.
Dorothy does deals, right?
Yeah, I think it's Dorothy Does Deals. Let me Google myself. Hold on a second. You can tell that I keep up with my social media stuff. Not so much. Let's see. Channel. Nope, that's not me. Oh yeah, no. Hold on a second. Oh, switch account. That'd be helpful. There we go. That can't be it. I know I have more than my videos. There we go. It is under Dorothy Butella.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple things on there right now, but I have a bunch of other things to put on there. So, and then I'll get this uploaded as well.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right, well, if you don't have any other questions, will I see both of your faces tomorrow?
I think so. Let me just double check. I know.
Same time?
Same time, same, different link, but same person.
Yep, I will be here.
Wonderful. All right, well, you both enjoy your evening, and then I will see both of your faces tomorrow.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yes, anytime.